Okay, so I'm going to start by doing the Explorer just so you guys can see a little bit different way to do these. This For the Explorer, we have f of a equals 51, and I want to go over that because I want you guys to see it a little different. And a lot of the ones that we've had things like this. F of 3 is what you're plugging in. So for this first one, if I had that, I would have f of a minus 8, and I would plug in 3 wherever there's a wherever there is a. But this one's a little bit different. Okay, so I wanted to go over that first. In this one, we're seeing that f of a is 51. It equals 51. So this ends up just being a substitution problem. So when I have f of a minus 8, it means instead of the f of a, I can put in 51 because it's just a substitution. So I can do 51 minus 8. 51 minus 8. If it was minus 10, it would be 41, but I don't quite minus 10. This ends up being 43 instead. Okay, so for all of these problems, so when I have like 1/3 of f of a, all you would do is any place there's an f of a, you could plug in 51 instead. Okay, so that was just kind of a review, fun little quick lesson, but also something I wanted to go over before we get into today's notes. So today we're going to actually be looking at the equation of lines, kind of doing the same thing that you were doing before, but now we have real life word problems. For some reason that's not opening, so I'll go in here. The example we're looking at today says, down on the farm. Colleen recently purchased a farm that raised chickens. Since she has never raised chickens before, Colleen wants to learn as much as she can about baby chicks. In particular, she wants to know how much a baby chick weighs when it is hatched. To find out, Colleen decides to track the weight of one of the chicks that was born just before she purchased the farm. She found that her chick grew steadily by about 5.2 grams. Okay, 5.2 grams. I know that that's important, so I'm going to write that down. Okay, each day. So for every day it grew that much. And she assumed it had been doing so since it hatched. 9 days after it hatched, the chick weighed, so on day 9, okay, on day 9, the chick weighed 98.4 grams. Okay, so here we have days since hatched. Here we have the weight. And there's this steady increase of about 5.2 grams per day. So that's what I kind of know about this going into it. It says, determine how much the chick weighed the day it hatched using 2 different representations. We're going to use a graph and we're going to use an XY table. So these are going to be 2 different ways to do this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make the table. I'll do the graph after I make the table and kind of pull it all together. But if I have an X and I have a Y, I want to find out on day 0 how much it weighed, but I don't know how much it weighed yet. So I do know that I don't know how much it was on day 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, but I do know how much it weighs on day 9. Okay, on day 9, our chick weighs 98.4 grams. I also know that it's increasing by 5.2 grams. So if I added 5.2 grams, I would get that on day 10, if it had that same growth rate, I would take my 98.4 and I would add 5.2 and I would get 103.6 grams. But that's not the goal of what we're doing here. I actually want to go back and I want to find how much this chick weighs on day 0. So I'm going backwards instead. So what I'm going to do is, instead of going here, I'm going to subtract. I'm going to subtract each time. So I have 98.4. I'm going to minus 5.2 grams, and that means that it must have weighed 93.2 on day 8. I'm going to subtract another 5.2 to get 88 grams. I'm going to subtract another 5.2 to get 82.8 grams on day 6. I'm going to keep on doing that. 5.2, so I'm at 77.6 minus 5.2, and I get 72.4 minus 5.2. I get 67.2 minus 5.2. I get 62 grams minus 5.2, almost there. 56.8, and last but not least, minus 5.2. 51.6 grams is what that baby chick weighed on day 1 if it has that stable growth rate of 5.2 grams per day. Okay, so we can graph that now, but before I graph it, I actually want to try to find the equation of a line. What we've learned is that when we have the slope, which that's exactly what slope is, it's the rate of change. We're given the slope and we're given a point that's on the slope. I should be able to find the equation of the line. You guys might already see that this is your y-intercept. So we actually have the equation of the line, but I'm going to pretend like I didn't do the table just now. If I didn't do the table, then another way to find it is to actually find the equation. I have a slope of 5.2x, and maybe I don't know my b. Okay, we just found it, but maybe I don't know it going in. So on this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the point that we did have. We had day 9 there. We had the weight there. So what I have is I have 98.4 is equal to 5.2 grams times 9 days. Okay, so I'm plugging in the point that I have. This is if you're given the slope, given a point. So if I do 5.2 times 9, I get 46.8. So I'm going to now take that 46.8 plus b is equal to 98.4. I'm going to subtract this 46.8. So I have 98.4 minus 46.8. I get 51.6 should be my y-intercept. Well, look, that's what we got. We got that same thing by working backwards. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open Desmos and I'm going to graph it. So Desmos.com, graphing calculator. So now on here, I am going to plot the graph. Y is equal to, because that's what I think this is, 5.2x plus my 51.6 grams. Okay, I'm pretty certain that's the equation of the line, but to make sure, I'm going to actually insert a table, and I'm going to put some of the points that we found. We found 0 and 51.6. We found the point 2 and 62. I'm going to put 5 and 77, what was it, 0.6. I'm going to put 8 and 93.2. I'm going to see if some of these points or all of them are on the line. And sure enough, it definitely looks like they are on the line. I'm zooming in and zooming out here. But all the points that I just put on here, in fact, if I had taken the time to do all 10 of these, they all should be on the line. So now you've seen it in a table, which we actually did first. You've seen it done without a table, like just finding it with a slope and a point and slope. And then now you've seen it graphically as well. So today, that's what you're going to be practicing. You're going to be practicing those quantity or those qualities. And if it asks you for a table, then you'll be doing this. If it asks you to use point and slope and use an equation, then you'll be doing this. And then last but not least, if it asks you to graph, please take a picture of your graph. So you'll use Desmos and then you'll take a picture of that and upload it into your document. Good luck.